If you're thinking about teaching people how to roll, you're taking somebody's kayaking career into your hands. This is one of the most important things and most important skills that you're ever going to teach in the sport of kayaking. That's the roll and the brace. So what I want to make sure is that you've got a program that's going to do it, and a step-by-step process that you can use that allows your students to learn the roll effectively and efficiently, and not be one of those statistics of people that wanted to learn how to roll but got discouraged and left the sport. What's the best sport in the whole world? It's whitewater kayaking. But for some reason, only 1 out of 10 people who take a beginner class ever become a kayaker. And one of the main reasons for that is because they become somewhat frustrated with their roll and brace, and they're not completely confident in the concept that they are going to get a good roll and brace. First thing we need to know as an instructor is, what's our goal? Our goal is 2 things. We want to teach the technique for rolling and bracing that allows people to be able to do it successfully. But more importantly, we want to teach the confidence and the mental side of rolling and bracing that allows people to feel like they're progressing and doing well. The combination of those 2 things gets people over the hump and gets them right side up the fastest possible way. Did you know that if you've got a really good process for teaching rolling, you can teach anybody to go from upside down to right side up in less than 15 minutes? It's the 15-minute You Can Roll Your Money Back Guarantee program. I've done it over and over and over. Take anybody, whether they've ever been in a boat or not, and from the time they're ready to start learning their roll, basically from the time they've already done a wet exit and they've done a little bit of paddling around, from that point until they've gone from upside down to right side up should only take 15 minutes. Now, does that mean you should only take 15 minutes to teach anybody to roll? No, that's just the minimum amount of time that you can do it every time. You've got 2 mental goals when you're teaching kayaking. Number 1 is you want the student to feel like they're succeeding every step of the way, to feel like they're breezing through the process and that there's no question that they're going to learn to roll right now and very quickly. The second thing you're trying to achieve is to use the minimum amount of random access memory for your student's brain. Now, the learning process that you saw in this video for learning the roll, that step-by-step process for phase 1, 2, and 3, that's the fastest and the least amount of random access memory method for teaching. What I'm going to do in a second is show you at each phase what you're supposed to be telling the student and why to use the minimum amount of RAM. The first thing you're going to teach when you're teaching the roll is the brace, just like we did in this video. Now, why did we do that? Number 1, we want to make sure that we teach people the right body position to finish the roll in, but we want to do it in a right side up position. Remember, when your student is right side up and their head's out of the water, they can think clearly and they're comfortable. And that's the environment you want to teach them as much as possible. For the entire process of teaching the brace and the roll, anytime you want to put them or tell them about a position, you manipulate them. You take their head, put it to the back, put it down in the water. You grab the paddle, you hold it out to the side, you hold them, have them grab their paddle. You make sure their paddle's in the right position and their head and body's in the right position. You're holding their boat. Now here's a key part of the brace. Did you notice the whole time I was teaching the roll and the brace to beginners, I was right there at all times. There is no way any one of those students could ever tip over. This is one of the key elements to teaching the brace and the roll. Every single step of the entire process, your student is going to succeed. For example, if they're learning to brace, they're never going to go for the brace and fall in the water. Not even one time. Your goal is success, 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 success. Every failure puts a seed of doubt in the mind of your student, and you cannot afford to have those. So how do you make sure they succeed? Have your hand right by their cockpit rim. Position their body back, position their paddle in the right spot, and then you have them brace. You're holding on. Okay, have them do it a few times. When you know they're going to be successful, hold your hand back and let them see that you're not helping them. But what happens if they start falling? Reach down, grab their boat, hold them up. When you're teaching the brace right away, basically you're teaching them for the objective of getting them rolling. So all we're trying to do with the brace here is get their paddle out, positioned perpendicular to the boat as far as they can reach, and their head all the way in the down back position. Once they can do that consistently, 3 or 4 braces in the water, their head hits the water, they're ready to learn to roll. How long does that take? Anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. Okay. When you're teaching phase one, your objective is to let them know just how important phase one is. In other words, you've got to build it up to this monumental thing. Now, you're going to try to tell them that it's the most important part of the role, which it is. That it's the most difficult thing that most people screw up, which it is. And it's going to be super hard, and we hope you can do it. True and false. When they do their phase one, are they going to actually get a hip snap? Of course they do. How many people do you know that you can't show how to hip snap on the side of a pool or your boat? Very few. So what's going to happen? They're going to try it. The whole thing's been built up as this big, hard skill. They try it. They succeed right away. And they're like, hey, I can do this. And that was the hardest part. It's all downhill from here. That's exactly what you want them thinking. But let's think for a second. The hip snap is so easy for most people to do when they're only doing the hip snap, correct? That's correct. Then why do so many people lift their head and fail to hip snap when they're learning to roll? Random access memory. Soon as you put a paddle in their hand and tell them to do anything with the paddle, what does their brain do? It runs out of RAM, it shuts down, and the only thing they can think of is get the head out of the water. So they fail to do the hip snap. Phase two is a method of teaching somebody to use their paddle and actually do their first Eskimo roll, all without using up too much random access memory. How do you do it? Step one is we put the paddle on our boat. We hold the front of their boat. We let them flip over on top of us and hip snap off. It's very simple. It's a controlled environment, and they can do it without getting their head all the way in the water if they want to in the beginning. Let me give you a few key elements from you as a teacher's point of view first. Number one, if you don't hold their hand when their paddle is on your boat, they're going to be less confident and they're going to be very likely to slide the paddle off the boat. So hold on to their hand, key. Number two, you have to hold on to their boat as well. If you don't hold on to their boat is going to swing away from you and their top hand is going to slip right off of their boat. They're going to flop in the water. So you need to control them. Hold on to their boat, hold their hand. The other thing we need to be concerned with is their top hand. When they flip over, and their top hand is going to rub against the boat. It's going to stop on the boat. You have to make sure that they lift that top hand over and allows the boat to tip all the way upside down. At the same side, on the back side, if they don't lift that top hand up, it's going to rub, right? So we need to make sure we fix that before we have them do anything. Okay, now we're ready to have them do their first hip snaps. Phase one, we build up as this huge deal. Here's how you introduce phase two. You want to belittle phase two. You want to make it seem as easy and simple and logical as possible. So what do? You tell them, okay, phase two, this is super simple, super easy, nothing changes. It's just like phase one, but instead of you holding onto my boat, you're going to hold onto my paddle and put your paddle on my boat. It's the only thing that changes. You tell them that, then you position them, you hold them on, you have them flip over, hip snap off. Then you can tell them to lift the paddle up a little bit. Now you have them do it 2 or 3 times. Now what are we looking for? We're just looking for a smooth, clean hip snap. Every time that they do it, a hip snap at all, great, good job. Of course, we want to get them in the head all the way down and back position. Once they're going head down and back and they're doing a smooth hip snap without rubbing their hand, you're ready to take them to the next step in phase two. The next step in phase two, I introduce this way. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to make it feel more realistic. I'm going to hold your paddle down in the water. Now, why do I do it that way? I don't want them to get freaked out and think I'm doing anything big. Remember, our goal is to belittle phase two. We don't want them thinking it's difficult, because it's not. So the next step, you're going to hold the paddle down in the water, as you see here. They're going to flop over, hip snap up. Now, most people, unless you've told them that they have to keep the paddle in front of them and perpendicular to the boat, if you were to hold the paddle there and they go to tip over, they're going to bring the paddle behind them and slip off and fall in the water. Now remember, we've got a rule when we teach rolling. What is it? Rule number one is they don't fail in a single step. They succeed every step of the way. Now, how do we do that if we're holding the paddle out here? How do we make sure that they never flop in the water? Well, the key is that no matter what, you're never going to let go of them, and you never let go of their paddle. All you have to do if they slide off the boat and flop in the water is grab the paddle shaft, lean back, and they'll hip snap right back up. The key here is that at no point in their brain are they thinking, I don't like this, I'm going to get stuck upside down, this is getting hard. As soon as they do that, they're not going to have the brain power they need to do a quick roll. So make sure that you monitor that. You've got to keep them succeeding every step. Okay, you've held the paddle in the water, they flop in, they hip snap up. They flop in, they hip snap up. You will know if they're doing a good job. The hip snap will be smooth, they'll come up on the back deck. If they're doing a good job, guess what your next step is? To have them do their first assisted roll. How do you do that? They flop in right when they start the impulse, right when they start doing their hip snap. Let go of the paddle just like this. They're going to hip snap right up. They're going to be right side up, and it's going to be golden. You need to tell them, guess what you just did? You just did your first roll. You went from upside down to right side up under your own power, nothing but you, the paddle, and the water. Now they're going to be like, what? I did? Now if you're in a group environment, you make sure all your other students are watching, and they're all going to be like, yay! And then we're going to be like, you say, hey guys, did he just do a roll or she just do a roll? Yeah. Did I hold on to the paddle? No. Now your student's going to be stoked, all right? There's a key step you need to be aware of, you need to use in your teaching of the roll, and that's remedial training. All that means is you need to take your student back quickly and often to a step that they can do well before you move them to the next step. Don't assume that they can just keep progressing. For example, we're in phase 2 now. Even though we're in phase 2, they've tipped over, you've let go, and they've rolled up. Don't expect them to be able to do it the next time. Why not? Because the next time, they're going to know you're going to let go. In fact, you'll probably tell them you're going to let go. What do you think they're going to do next? They're going to try really hard. What does that mean? They're going to go like this, and they're going to lift their head. So now that you know that, what are you going to do? You're not going to let go. You're going to have them tip over, hip snap up, but you're going to hold on this time. $5 says that they lift their head and they wouldn't have made it anyway. So now you have them once again, do it again. Phase 2, this time I'm not going to let go. Tip over, hip snap up, head all the way down and back. Boom, they're going to do it well. Now, one more time, tip over, hip snap up, you let go. Wow, they did it right. One more time. Hey, this time, by the way, I'm going to let go. Just don't change anything. Just keep it the same. Now, one more teaching tip. If they go like this, okay, they're thinking about it. If they think about it, cut them off. It's not going to work. Okay, stop thinking. One more phase 2. I'm not letting go because you're thinking too hard. They go over and they hip snap up and they do it right. Now, I'm going to let go again. Ready? Tip over, hip snap up. I'm going to let go. If they don't think about it and they go right in, you can let go and they'll succeed. You need to be aware every time your student's going to succeed or going to fail before they do it. And if you follow the exact same progression and you know what you're looking for, you're going to be able to spot that. Remember, your goal is 0 failure. Now, how are you going to keep them from tipping all the way in the water if they geek their phase 2, if you've let go? You're close enough that if they lift their head and their paddle starts diving, you're within arm's reach. You just grab the paddle shaft, lean back, and they hip snap up. You can be there every time. They should never be all the way upside down. All right. One quick tip again. If they're having trouble with this phase 2, you need to put them back into phase 1, couple hip snaps, head down and back, do a couple braces, then bring them forward again. They should be able to get the phase 2, and you should be done with the phase 2 in less than 10 minutes if you're pushing them through quick, 15 or 20 minutes if you're doing it at a relaxed pace. All right, next step, phase 3. There's a lot of ways to teach phase 3. You can get out of the boat, you can get in the water, and you can walk them through the process. Nothing wrong with that. However, there's a quicker, easier, and just as effective method for teaching the beginner how to roll, and that's this. You simply show them home base, show them how to cock up, just like we learned in the Learn to Roll section of the video in phase 3. Show them how to cock up, have them practice a number of times. Now here's the way I introduce phase 3 to them. I'm like, okay, phase 2, you've got that down pretty easy? Oh yeah, no problem, I can do that. All right, then you have them tip over and sit there. You're holding onto their paddle in the phase 2 position. Your goal is to get them to memorize that position. So what do you say? Hey, when you tip over, sit there for a few seconds. Memorize what that feels like. Have them hip snap back up. Once they've done that, just ask them, hey, do you remember that position? If they say yes, then you go like this. Set up the home base. You take their arm, you push it straight over their head. You say, does this feel familiar? This is your phase 2 position that you roll from. Oh yeah, I remember that. So let me ask you this. You tell your student, can you go from here to here on your own? They do it right side up 3 or 4 times. Is that hard? No, that's easy. I can do that. Are you sure? Yeah, I can do that. Well, then try it with your eyes closed. I can do that, no problem. Can you do it underwater? Now, what do they do 50% of the time? They go, well, let me think, underwater, I don't know. Okay, you're thinking too hard. Go to home base, straight up. All right, can you do that underwater? Just that exact motion? Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, that's not good enough. 5 more times. Can you do it? Oh, yeah, I can do that. All right, tip over, roll up. Literally that fast. Once again, what happens if they go like this? Okay. You stop them. You don't let them tip over. They will not roll. So what do? You do a little remedial training. 1 more phase 2, 1 more of these sets of series, cocking their paddle up. Okay, you ready to go? They're ready. You have them flip over and they roll up. But guess what? What if they geek their roll? What if they don't do their paddle right or lift their head? They never get past here. You're right there every time. You're on the side of the boat, away from the side they're rolling up on. The second their boat starts tipping back in again, boom, you grab, you lean back. Now if they're all letting go of the paddle, you have them grab their paddle, put them in position, tell them to lay back and brace up. Then you do some remedial training, back to phase 2, boom, boom, good job. Do a couple of these, they go again. 3 or 4 times they should make their first roll. Now your deal is to make the biggest possible to do about their first roll that you can come up with. You have the entire group, you stop everybody in the pool or everybody around you and say, hey, check it out. So-and-so just got their first roll, woo! And you make a big deal about it. And you need to let them know at that moment, you just stop the presses and you let them know you can roll. And you make that perfectly clear. You don't just keep going and try to perfect it. Here's why. Your student at that point is developing their own little self-image about their ability to kayak. And if you can let them know that you did a roll and you can roll, then guess what? That student is going to believe that, and all they feel like they need to do is practice and get better at it. And that's what you're looking for. To teach the roll super effectively, remember, these things are key. Number 1, you need to lead the student quickly and effectively through a process. That process should take the least amount of mental power possible. Your student cannot think under the water, so you need to have them think above the water and do very simple motions and just repeat them. Anytime your student has trouble, you do remedial training. You take them back a step before you move them forward again. Before you move to the next step, you take them back a step anyway, even if they're doing well, and then move them forward again. Why? Success, 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 success. 0 failures, 100% success.